All right, guys, and we're live. Hey, everybody watching at home. Welcome to the ECE Disruptors Live Chat. Happy Friday, y'all. We're here with myself, LaToya Riggins, and our very own Dr. Robert Gundling. His 55 years of experience. How you doing, Robert? How are you?
Fine, LaToya. Happy winter.
I know we're feeling it over here in DC. How's it going at the beach?
Uh, Cold and potential snow tomorrow, which makes
Mm.
which I
How's it going
well,
at the beach?
which is intriguing to me because I thought moving south I would say goodbye to the snow, especially being near the coast. And what I'm intrigued about is the relationship between salt water and attracting weather. I mean, snow and ice.
Isn't that
So this
something?
current, for example, and then I'll stop because it's me and my curiosity. And frankly, folks, if I were working with children, we'd be talking about it and we'd be learning about it. I find doing observations in classrooms one area where teachers seem to need, I think, a considerable amount of support is relating what's going on in the lives of the children to what's happening in the learning environment. Um, yeah. So for me, I'd do it as young as infants, frankly, folks.
Mhm.
Well, let's talk about the weather. What's happening? What do you notice?
Mhm.
What's predicted? So, a beautiful opportunity to start to develop, support the development in infants and toddlers with language, because that's another area that I feel that our infant toddler educators are challenged because the children aren't verbal. I mean, they're learning language. Okay, so what I got to do is give them words that may not stick all at once, but the more we talk about it, I don't know about everybody else, but me, if I don't know what a word means, the more someone uses that word in context, I can eventually figure out the meaning.
Mhm.
So asking that, well, what's the weather prediction for this weekend? And of course, the beauty of it. Okay, so I was in an infant classroom yesterday. Well, do you know that on the weather, um, on the news station, on television, they're including in the weather report, they're predicting that we might get 5 to 10 inches of snow. And you see, I could develop a whole project. 5 to 7 inches. How much is 5 inches?
And how
Okay,
old
give
were the
them a
kids?
hands-on experience.
How
Well,
old were the
let's get,
kids? You said infants talking about
I
inches?
say 12, I say, I don't care how old they are,
Oh, I'm talking
as
about from
much
yesterday.
as, okay, and then LaToya, I want to listen to you today. I don't, because what I know is from birth to 2 years old, that brain is moving at its most rapid rate of development. So they're soaking it all in like sponges. So really a reservoir that as they mature and as they get more support, it comes in, it develops. Okay, so I use that with a young infant. By the time, let's say the infant's 5 years old and a kindergarten teacher says, "So what's predicted for the weather tomorrow?" The child, "Oh, I know what predicted is." That's when you make the guess. And and in a program in Southeast DC where I was a member of the leadership team. We would have public school teachers come back to our facilities and say, where did these children learn this stuff? They know more than all the other children in the classroom.
Right.
Okay, not rocket science. And so, LaToya, with all of that, I want to continue our conversation because, folks, I'm on a mission. Talk about perseverance, resilience, and that is with my colleague, who I consider an expert in workforce development. We're gonna, I hope, arrive at solutions for what I've mentioned before, I consider a mythical or an illusion of a staffing crisis. There are people out there that want to work with young children. I agree. It's not as easy to find them as it was when my career first started, but they're out there. So look forward to you also joining our Facebook group and weighing in with what you're give us the real thing, give us the truth. What are your challenges so that we can factor that into our conversation as we're proving our hypothesis, either right or wrong? And there's nothing wrong with making a mistake if you focus on learning along the way. So, LaToya, as someone who you talked about um, the employer-employee relationship, your relationship with the employer as you were working with clients, the relationship you had with clients as you were determining who are the best employers, where's the fit uh, that you've used, which has prompted in my mind, what are the three top characteristics of clients you worked with who had a high retention rate once you placed them? And folks, for me, coming attraction would be, what were some of the indicators when it broke down? Um, and and yeah,
That's a loaded question.
it's a real loaded question. However, in order, from my experience with my dissertation and research I do, um, that's one of the indicators of quality research. You ask the hard questions. You deal with the tough issues related to your hypothesis, because that strengthens your conclusion whether the hypothesis is true or not, even though you review it continuously. So I'm going to start this conversation, and then for the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to listen to LaToya. So I found, as an administrator, and even today, uh, top three things. Number one, sense of community. My staff, and I was intentional about that, I was creating a community of learners, which got me into what were my guiding principles, what were my values, where I learned the difference between equality and equity. Everybody doesn't get the same thing because everybody doesn't need the same thing. Number two, my focus on building relationships connected to the first, the community. So my staff, I I I I did my morning walk around, regardless. Anything short of a life and death crisis could wait. The relationship with my staff was that important. And that meant a 2 or 3 minute check-in every morning in every classroom with the teachers. Okay, but 3 minutes every morning is 15 minutes a work week, which is an hour a month.
Right.
And I'm talking focused attention on the teachers in that specific classroom. So community, relationships, and respect. Every member of my staff knew I valued who they were and what they said mattered to me. To this day, I get emails from staff I worked with over 20 years ago asking me, how are you? What's going on? Um, Final thing I'll say is, so I had one staff person, I may have talked about her because she passed away, and that's another thing. Life is precious. You, you know, you get opportunities to touch somebody's life. And this particular individual was so creative. She got a CDA, but didn't do anything. And she was upset about it. So I said to her, I understand how you feel. However, I'm going to support you. I can't undo what you did. So I'm going to make it right. So I'm committing to work with you for a minimum of 120 hours so that you are eligible and you get a CDA and it's up on the wall.
Right now.
Okay. Well, we went on the fast track and in 3 weeks she had a CDA. Yeah. So her colleagues who were naysayers, they ate, well, it's Southeast DC. They ate sweet potato pie. Yeah, right on their face. And not only did she earn a CDA, but she went on to earn an associate degree with honors.
Nice.
And 2 months before she passed away, I saw her and she said, Dr. Gundling, I'm going to apply for a bachelor's program, but I need you to be with me. And I said to her, I'm with you all the way because you got doctoral material. You got the natural gift. And so that's what I saw as the top three characteristics. What I'm intrigued about is what you think about what I said and what do you, and if you, you, um, it was not something that you did with your clients once they were placed, what do you think might have happened if you continued the relationship with them to identify what retained them? I often think about the young lady who went through the CDA program that I facilitated where you worked, LaToya. She got placed, and I wonder at times whether or not she's still there.
Yeah, like where are they now? Well, that's a good question. And one of the things in our program, we had a retention program. So I was able to follow them for up to a year with their jobs, their careers. And I'm gonna be honest with you, just like you, I live in DC. So to this day, and I haven't worked there, this will be 6 years this May since I've done, worked in the program. And anywhere I go, people spot me, they see me, they grab me, they hug my kids, like because of the relationship, like you said. But one of the things I found interesting that you were talking about with the young lady is her actually achieving as she was working. And that sprung something in my head. And I remember, like you talked about how I always go and visit employer spaces to see. One of the businesses I visited, I'll just say it, the Southeast Children's Fund. I remember the first time I went over there, I was able to walk through, like see it while the kids were there. And I was walking through, just wandering around, talking to the teachers, right? And so as I'm talking to teachers, I remember the first lady that I approached, I asked her, so how long have you been working here? She said 15 years. And that was my first person that I opened my mouth to. And I was like blown away because even in any job, any company that I would go to, 15 years was like unheard of. That was like back in the days, somebody been working at the power plant for 30 years for their pension. When I got into workforce development, it was like 2 years was like a big deal to have retained at a job. So when I heard 15 years, the first thing I wanted to know was how, why, what make you say? Because I gotta know so I could tell these employees what they need to be doing. And she said, she was talking about Miss Rollins, and she said, when I came to her, I didn't even have a high school diploma. I didn't have a lot of options. She took a chance on me, gave me a schedule where I could go back to school so I could earn money and I could go back to school and get my high school diploma. And then she said she sent her back and got her CDA. And then just like you said, like the steps were in place. And what she told me her story, I could see in her eyes that she felt a belonging. She felt a sense of community. She felt a sense of family there and an investment. And that's what I tell employers. I go back to this all the time when it comes to the whole employee-employer relationship. It's a lot like dating. It is because it's a scary place. It's you get burned, you get your heart broken, so to speak, your little HR heart broken, and then you're scared. I always used to say, because I worked in HR, I used to say to the other colleagues when we were recruiting, and they would reject people for stupid stuff I felt. I would say, you guys are scorn lovers. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you're scorn lovers because you're thinking about the last guy. You're not thinking about this person is a fresh face. You don't know what they've been through. You're not even digging to see why this is this way or what this means. They're just, nope, next. Mm-mm. So when I hear the stories from the actual candidates that go into these companies and stay, it's always about that. Like you said, the relationship and the investment and them seeing a path for them, a place for me, that's not just, oh, you're just a number, you could be replaced. Because, there's a lot of employees who kind of work like that because, it is a really sensitive place to be an employer because you have to be vulnerable every day and you have to protect your business. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a really fine line that you have to walk, but you also have to be resilient as an employer because you don't know what you're going to get and you don't know what somebody's going through. But when you build a relationship with a person, you see not only what they're going through, but you see what they need. And there's a lot of times where employers have the tools to really support a person through those things. Sometimes they don't know that they can support. Sometimes they won't know because they don't have that relationship with the candidate. But one of the biggest things I will say, Robert, is that investment, going to the limits of making sure that the employee knows that this is a place that I want to grow with you. It gives them a reason to want to come to work because now they feel a sense of ownership in it, some place where they can create and show their natural gifts. That's really when you asked about the characteristics of a person that's gonna, retain a position, I don't really have characteristics. What I look at is what they want in life. You know what I mean? And what works best with their actual situation. And those are the people who stay in this place, I feel. It has to be a comfortable spot for them. It has to be a convenient for them. It has to have pay that's sustainable for their bills and that relationship, the community, and the culture, you guys. One of the things I stress to employees is the culture. And I'll I'll tell anybody. There was a quote. I was doing a presentation. I don't know if you remember Dr. Gullen. And I put a quote up on the presentation, and it says, culture eats structure for breakfast. So those of you who think that, oh, I got the structure in place, nothing's gonna happen, everything's gonna be great, and you don't have no culture, you're gonna see that structure crumble underneath chaos. Because if the culture is negative, it's gonna ruin everything. And one of the things I always kind of go back to is, yeah, I definitely do check-ins when I place a person in a position. I not only do check-ins with the candidate, I also do check-ins with the employer, see how it's going. And I wish every employer had a me, because I bridged that gap. I was almost like a mediator almost. I was like their HR pretty much. I bridged the gap between the candidate and the employer so that they could hear each other. And Robert, I mean, I could probably make a movie off of the craziness that I've seen. I've had to literally physically referee on several occasions where, the employer will call me, oh, LaToya, this person that I placed, they were great, but then this happened and this happened and this happened. I don't know if they're gonna be a fit, and I'll say, well, let me talk to them. And I would talk to them, the candidate, and they'll tell me, oh, Mr. Toya, the employer's doing this and this. I never knew an employer could do that. And then look at this text message, and look what they called me a this, and they said this, and I'm like, wait, what? Now, of course, the employer's not telling me none of that. It's just like kids. You tell them your mom one thing, and you tell your dad another thing, and then the story doesn't get together until everybody's on the same page. And then I would have to sit them both down and clear it out, just like a mom. And yeah, it was a little pain in the butt, but it was necessary because, like I said, everybody has to be held accountable. And when it comes to the employers, there's a lot of entitlement that happens, and there's a lot of favoritism that happens. There's a lot of how do you say, lack of a backbone. That's probably the biggest deal in leadership. Nobody got a backbone, so they want to call me. So that's why the culture needs to be there, meaning you have to have the boundaries established, have some policies in place, and actually enforce them. Stick by what you wrote. And that's why when people always say, oh, your candidates are always so professional, da 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 da. I'm proud of that. But I had to realize that my employers ain't always that professional. That's why I used to go and train them. Like, hey, I would ask certain employers, is it okay if I come in the room with you for a couple of your interviews? Because I would allow my people to go in the back room with them and interview privately. But what I realized every time somebody would come out of the room, first thing I do, let's go. Let's debrief. I want to know what they asked you. I want to know what you said. I want to know what the mood was like. I'm not checking for inappropriate stuff. That I didn't really have a lot of inappropriate things happen, like anybody doing any harassment or anything. I was looking for what kind of questions they're asking, and if they're treating the different candidates fairly too. Like, are you asking the same questions to everybody? Or are you being biased? Because bias is a natural thing for us humans. But also, I wanted to know, are you really getting to the nitty-gritty of what you said you wanted? Because sometimes people say they want one thing, but they asking questions about something else. So it's like, stick to the script, okay? And when I put the onus back on the employer, honestly, Robert, it really helped the employers, because a lot of them didn't understand what they were doing that was shooting themselves in the foot. Like, for instance, I had an employer who he was like hard to find. Like, I had to dig in the trenches for this man. Like, I was good at digging in the trenches. I would go anywhere, train tracks. I'm crawling through construction sites, knocking on no-name doors. I was that one, right? So when I find them, they always like, how'd you find me? Don't worry about all that. I'm here now. And then I get to the thing of, what do you want? They give me this cutesy little list of, yeah, they have to be this, they have to do this, they have to have experience in this, and da 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 da. All of these nice little things. Okay, is that all? So then I go deeper. What about background checks? Do you guys do background checks? And they're like, well, yeah. And I say, well, what's acceptable? Because I don't waste me or my candidate's time. What if a client has a gun charge? What do you do about that? Oh, gun charges are okay. We can deal with that. Just no theft. Good to know. You see how pinpoint I'm going to the nitty gritty. I'm not playing with you. We're not
Mhm.
here wasting people's time. If somebody needs a job, they don't got money to be traveling to all of these interviews and dressing up, and they know, and they're not going to get the job. Nah, I need it to be not so much as a sure thing, but it has to touch all the bases. So that's why I dig in the employer. So fast forward, this guy, he gives me all of the things that he needs, and he just needs somebody that's reliable, on time, this, that, and the third. I sent him about 7 people over the course of a week. Now, one of the ladies I sent him was good, meaning she had a strong background, meaning she had some work history. She was professional, actually a reliable as far as my program was concerned. She was reliable in my eyes. Um, Sent her. She was early for did everything right on the interview. So I was like, oh, she got this thing in the bag. So when it came down to who he's gonna hire, she was not on the list. Of course, I'm back up there. What's going on? Why didn't you hire her? And he said, what kind of people you sending me, LaToya? This girl came in here with purple hair. I said, okay, and then what else? And he was like, well, she interviewed well, but I couldn't get over that purple hair. So I said, okay, and what else? He kept talking about this purple hair. And I said, okay, well, let me tell you something about Black women. Most of their hair is fake. Okay, you see purple hair, she did not dye her hair purple. She could get them braids taken out tomorrow. How you know, she probably had her birthday party or something and got her hair done. And I said, listen, is that the only reason why you don't want to hire her? Because she came in here with purple hair. Yeah, I was turned off with the purple hair. I said, let me do this. How about I talk to her about this hair? What are acceptable hair colors in this company? They said regular hair colors that grow out your head. Got it. I said, I'm pretty sure it was a wig or a weave. I can talk to her about her hair color. If I sent her back with regular hair color, would you consider her? This man almost said no to me. And I said, so and I had to tell him, I said, so you are sitting here short staffed, paying people overtime over somebody's hair when you could have just had a conversation and you know the girl's good at everything else? Yeah, you're right. Go ahead, send her back. But tell her don't come in here with no purple hair. Done. It took a 5-minute conversation for me to call her and say, hey, lose the purple hair. Can you get back over there on Tuesday? He likes this, but he just don't like the purple hair. That's just unacceptable for the way the job, the way the company rolls. That's not a part of their culture. She was like, what? Take this any day. And she had herself a job. So you see what I'm saying? Employers are missing out on good people because of the lack of a conversation with them. You know what I mean? And you just turn her away just like that. So that's why I believe that I was needed, because I had to advocate for the employers and the employees, and I had to shake some sense into some of these employers. Like, you can't talk to people like that. I'm sorry, you can't curse at people. That's not your child, you know.
Well, all
So
right, LaToya.
you're gonna
Well,
get me on
as
a tangent.
usual, we run out of time. Folks, when my head's down, I'm writing. So I want to close it, LaToya, with what I heard from you that to me are gems. Um, you got to find a person's need. I wrote down, you got to support them through the journey from, oh, I want the job because I love the children, to supporting them to learn that the job is about supporting the growth and the development of the children. That you talked about their natural gifts, which to me is talent acquisition,
Yes.
hiring for talent rather than a using the job description um, to decide who's qualified or not.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas talent acquisition to me is who's got the potential to grow.
Yes.
Um, and you described to me, which is fab. Maybe the first place I ought to be looking is the neighborhood where my program is located,
Mm-hmm.
because it's convenient. And then I want to explore with you, because I, at the moment, don't fully understand your connection of culture to structure. And and I want to
Oh, that's going to be a
dive
good
into
one.
that because I think that's important as we're pushing business practices for early childhood leaders. And then that you served as a human resource professional. So providing the resources to an employee to develop natural gifts to become an early childhood educator. Well, folks, I hope you have a great weekend down here in Virginia Beach. We may be seeing the white stuff.
Ah,
So once again, I'm honored and privileged to be in the company of LaToya. I certainly hope that we hear from you. I have the highest regard and respect for LaToya. Her expertise, specifically tied to our conversation of workforce development, is natural as far as I'm concerned and invaluable. With that, LaToya, I'll say have a good weekend.
thank
Have
you. You
fun.
too.
Okie doke.
See you
Bye.
guys later. Bye.